Hey, what's poppin', everybody? Let's recap yesterday. Brutal-ish day for us. Jeffrey Springs, the lock of the day, ends up throwing 6 strikeouts. He had 2 strikeouts in the first inning, 2 in the second inning, and then only got 1 for the remainder of the game, which is what he should have done initially. He got lucky on a bunch of strikeouts early. So Jeffrey Springs ended up going over by just 1. He needed to go under 5.5. He ended up going over on just 1. And just to reiterate, 10 straight starting pitchers had gone under 6 strikeouts versus the Rays, or the Blue Jays, and the one time I take him, they go over, of course. It doesn't make any sense, but it is what it is. Aaron Nola ends up going over by just 1 on his strikeouts. He ended up throwing 8, he needed 7.5. And then Aaron Judge, the energy was electric. I was watching this game to see if Aaron Judge was going to hit off this record-breaking home run, but it ended up being Albert Pujols who ended up having the massive night. Of course, he finally hit 700 home runs, only the 4th person in over 100 years of MLB baseball. It's pretty incredible, pretty crazy. Congrats to Albert Pujols. I even thought about it. I looked at Albert Pujols because his fantasy score was only 5.5. So I was like, okay, that's maybe a walk and a base, right? And that's all he would need to go over. But I didn't end up playing it. So Aaron Judge did end up going under. He only had a single for us yesterday. So 1-2 day. But now we've got NFL plays for tomorrow. So it's Saturday right now, but I'm going to make the video a day early for the picks tomorrow and Sunday. So let's get into it. Real quick, if you guys are new to Underdog Fantasy, in the link down in the description below, I have a link that takes you straight to the App Store where you can download Underdog Fantasy because you're going to want to hop in on the action this year. They have added a whole bunch of new features to Underdog Fantasy this year, starting with the brand new insurance feature, okay? This insurance feature is a new thing that has been super requested for the fans and the customers of Underdog Fantasy. Essentially, all you do is you click insurance right here. And if you can see right there, all you have to do is hit 4 of these picks to win, but the value does drop down. So if you turn off the insurance, you do a $10 bet, you obviously get $200. And if you turn on the insurance feature, it drops down a multiplier down to 10. But if you miss one of these picks, say, Jameis Winston gets hurt or something, he doesn't end up throwing 2 touchdown passes. But everybody else hits like Lamar, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, and Justin Jefferson. All these guys hit. You still hit the slip. You just get it for $100. Just goes down a multiplier, which is a huge feature a lot of people have been asking for, so they received it. Also, they have added second half lines now to games. Obviously, it is on. There is nothing up because there's no NFL second half games, but they have added NFL second half. So just like for the Thursday night game, I'll throw up that clip right here. Thursday night, they dropped all the second half lines for that Thursday night game between the Bills and the Rams. They've added a bunch of new features this year. They're trying to improve to get the app better for you guys. Also, when you sign up, if you use code TAKEMYSHOT, you'll get $100 match, up to $100 match and 100% deposit match on your first time deposit. So if you do that, you can deposit $50 to get an extra $50, $20 to get an extra $20. Whole lot of stuff coming with Underdog Fantasy this year. Make sure you sign up with code TAKEMYSHOT. Now let's get to today's bets. All right, our lock of the day for tomorrow on Sunday for the NFL slate is going to be Rashad Bateman of the Baltimore Ravens over 48.5 yards receiving. One of the star breakouts early to start this NFL season, graded-wise, is one of the top receivers in the NFL as far as catching the ball, yards after catch, yardage, touchdowns. He's actually ranked as one of the top receivers in the NFL right now. So that's why I'm liking his early line here. They've got him at 48.5. Week 1, New England gave up... Gave up 8 catches for 94 yards to Tyreek Hill, the Miami Dolphins' clear wide receiver 1. Then in week 2 to Deontay Johnson, they gave up 6 catches for 57 yards. I like to grab those 2 wide receiver 1s from week 1 and week 2 and compare them to Rashad Bateman and his line, which sits at 48.5, which if you could say, week 1, the wide receiver 1 went over that total, and week 2, Deontay Johnson, he went over that wide receiver total versus this Patriots defense who are without J.C. Jackson now. So they don't have a true cornerback 1 that can guard elite wide receivers. And Rashad Bateman cooked up Xavier Howard last week, who is one of the top corners in the league. And Rashad Bateman was able to handle him pretty handily. So I'm liking that matchup as far as Rashad Bateman versus this Patriots defense. As far as the Ravens offense sits right now, they're 13th in the league overall as a passing offense, so right in the middle of the pack there. But they are second. They sit second in the NFL at yards per catch, sitting at 9 yards. So only one other team in the league has a better yards per catch total than the Baltimore Ravens. So as you can see, they're getting nearly a first down every single time they pass the ball, which is a pretty good chunk of yardage, especially when you only need to get to 49. And Rashad Bateman currently, out of everyone who's caught a pass in the NFL, sits at 7th in the league at targeted air yards at 15.9, which is telling you one thing. That means he's catching the ball and he's getting a lot of yards before he even catches the ball. 15.9 targeted air yards. It means by the time that ball passes the line of scrimmage and gets to Rashad Bateman's hands, it's already 16 yards down the field per average. 15.9, but we'll round it up one. So he's getting about 16 yards before he even touches the ball. And then he currently sits at second in the NFL in yards after the catch per reception at 15.5. So an average reception right now for Rashad Bateman sits at about 30 yards. Obviously, he's had two big plays. He's had a 75-yard catch and a 55-yard catch. So that'll juice it up a little bit, but that just means he's clearly becoming a deep down the field weapon and a yards after catch kind of guy. So I feel like that 48.5 receiving yards is still a little bit too low for Rashad Bateman. The Ravens offense is also averaging 265 yards of passing yards per game. He's responsible for about 28% of that passing offense, sitting at about 74 yards per game. So his average is a lot higher than what they're setting his line at here today. And the Patriots have not shown that they've been able to stop wide receiver ones through 2 weeks of the season. So give me Rashad Bateman over 48.5 yards receiving as our lock of the day for tomorrow. All right, time for our second play of the day here, guys. Sorry for the long-winded first pitch. I want to give as much data as I can to help elevate my pick. So that's why I went and grabbed as much data as I could for that first pick. But our second play of the day here for tomorrow will be Marcus Mariota over 208 yards passing. He'll be taking on Seattle. The Seattle defense has given up 257 yards of an average through the first 2 weeks. Took on a non-pass heavy offense in San Francisco, and then took on a heavy pass offense in Denver Broncos. So it meets right in the middle for about a 257 average. Marcus Mariota through 2 weeks is averaging 205 yards passing, but he's taken on two great defenses in the LA Rams defense and the New Orleans Saints defense. So Jalen Ramsey, Marshawn Lattimore, he's taken on some pretty elite secondaries as well as good pass rushers with Cameron Jordan, Aaron Donald. And still, through 2 weeks, even though he's faced those two elite pass rushers, he actually sits fourth in the league at time to throw, meaning the offensive line is giving him a lot of time to throw the ball. And tomorrow, he's taking on Seattle, who has no elite pass rushers. Also, they give up a lot through the year. So I'm liking the combination of Marcus Mariota to have a less talented defense that he's been playing the last 2 weeks with the Rams and the Saints. Also, he's going to have a lot of time in the pocket with no elite pass rusher for Seattle. And he's got weapons. He's got a decent amount of weapons. Obviously, a lot of people are making fun of Kyle Pitts because he hasn't really gotten going, but he still has Cordell Patterson out of the backfield. He still has the rookie. He's still got weapons to be able to distribute the ball pretty well. He sits at 10th in the league at completed air yards, meaning, again, the amount of yards that are going through the air before he completes a pass. He sits at 10th in the league at 6.5, so he's getting the ball decently down the field, but he does sit at dead last for the longest pass. He's only thrown a 30-yard pass this year, which makes him dead last. So he's not throwing it super far down the field. He's not airing it out by any means, but he's getting a good chunk of yards slowly but surely down the field. So I'm liking Marcus Mariota versus this defense to go over 200.85 yards passing for our second play for tomorrow. All right, next up our play will be a running back. Give us Miles Sanders over 63.5 yards rushing. Week 1, he had 96 yards, and in Week 2, he had 80 yards, hitting in both of the first 2 games of the season. Also had 30 carries through 2 weeks, so he's getting a good chunk of yards, and he's getting a good amount of the carries. Tomorrow, we will take on the Washington Commanders, who have the 6th worst run defense in the league. Week 1, they give up 66 yards to James Robinson, and then in a running back committee matchup against the Lions, they give up 56 to DeAndre Swift and 53 to Jamal Williams. DeAndre Swift obviously was coming off an injury, so we had a little bit of a pitch count, so Jamal Williams took a majority of the carries, but still was able to get a good chunk of yardage, over 100 yards between the two of those guys, so I'm liking the chances for Miles Sanders, who doesn't have a running back committee, to probably get a good chunk of yardage there. In Week 1, he had 33% of the carries, but he got massively overshadowed by Jalen Hurts, who had 17 carries in Week 1 from a quarterback. Is a little bit ridiculous. It went way back down in Week 2, where he had 17 carries. He had 50% of the carries in Week 2. On the entire season, he's accounting for 41% of the run plays, which for a running back is a pretty good, a good chunk of that offense. That means they're really not giving it to the other guys, and his main competition is Jalen Hurts for those yardage and the offensive carries. In one career game versus the Commanders, he does have 131 yards rushing, so has had a little bit of success versus the Commanders in the past. Running backs, to this point, have had success versus the Commanders this season. And the Eagles currently are the #1 rushing offense in the league. So I'm liking all those combinations of a bad rush defense and a really good run offense in the Eagles. So give me Miles Sanders over 63.5 yards rushing. All right, boys, on to our fourth play of the day. We're going to go with Justin Jefferson over 98.5 yards receiving. Now, I know he shot us in the foot last week because we would have cashed our slip last week, but he got locked up by a big play Slay. In 4 career games, he's taking on the Lions this week. In 4 career games versus the Lions, he's averaging a whopping 125.8 yards receiving versus this Lions defense. Now, in those 4 games, he had 64 yards, 182 yards, 133 yards, and 124 yards. So clearly had a lot of success in the past without this new offensive coordinator and head coach that they have now. So he had a lot of success before. He's probably going to have a lot of success again tomorrow. And the Lions have been struggling against wide receiver ones through 2 weeks. Obviously, A.J. Brown in week 1 had a massive 155-yard game. And then they took on the Commanders, who don't have a true wide receiver one, I'd say. Through 2 weeks of the season, Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin are like wide receiver A and B. Wide receiver 1, A/B. Curtis Samuel had 78 yards receiving, and Terry McLaurin had 75 yards receiving. Those are 2 wide receiver ones for the Commanders. So, again, combined, again, like I said with Swift and Jamal Williams, combined 2 guys that are getting a split in the pitch count, because Justin Jefferson is the clear focal point of the Vikings offense, so he won't be overshadowed by like Adam Thielen or something, taking receptions away from him or anything like that. So the Lions defense currently does sit 5th worst against the pass in the league, so they are giving up a whole lot. Justin Jefferson got clamped up last week. We all got to admit it. He got clamped up last week. So expect a big-time game here from Justin Jefferson versus the Lions in a divisional matchup. So give me Justin Jefferson over 98.5 yards receiving. All right, and our last play of the day will be another wide receiver. We're going to go with our first rookie this year. Give me Garrett Wilson over 50.5 receiving yards. Now, Garrett Wilson in week 1 had 52 yards, and in week 2 had 102 yards. So we went over in both week 1 and week 2. He's taking on the Bengals tomorrow. The Bengals defense have taken on awful passing offenses. In week 1, they took on the Steelers, who we all know are one of the statistically worst pass offenses in the league. And in week 2, they took on the Cowboys with a backup quarterback in Cooper Rush, who I was watching that game. They weren't throwing the ball at all with him until they absolutely had to. So their numbers statistically do not tell the story because they've taken on a really bad passing offense and a backup quarterback. So through 2 weeks, they've had a little bit of a backseat because they haven't had to take on anybody that can pass the ball. Well, now they're going to take on the 3rd best passing offense in the league in the New York Jets. And the number that really makes me get excited about this line is that the New York Jets through 2 games have thrown over 100 passes. Through 2 games, they have thrown over 100 passes, 104 to be exact. They are throwing the ball like crazy. And in week 2, I think we kind of saw a massive connection between Joe Flacco and Garrett Wilson. It's clearly his number 1 guy. He targeted him 14 times last week, so expect a lot more of that targeting to go towards Garrett Wilson, who clearly took that wide receiver 1 role in week 2. And I'm not anticipating anybody in that Bengals secondary. They don't have an elite corner in that Bengals secondary. They put Garrett Wilson all over the place. When I was watching the game last week, they threw him all over the place in the slot on the outside. So expect Garrett Wilson to once again continue to have a pretty good start to his rookie year. Give me Garrett Wilson over 50.5 yards versus the Cincinnati Bengals, who I anticipate, again, I'm going to take the Jets' points on this one. If there's any quarterback in the league that knows how to beat the AFC North, it's Joe Flacco, and he showed it last week, even though, it was a pretty improbable win last week. He's going to show it again versus this struggling Bengals team. Give me Garrett Wilson over 50.5 yards receiving today. All right, which means it's time for the perfect 5 slip. Maybe one of the longest videos I've put together in a long time. Sorry about that, but I'm just trying to, give you guys a lot of statistical data to back up my picks here today for tomorrow. So give me the lock of the day, which is Rashad Bateman over 48.5 yards receiving. Give me Marcus Mariota over 208.5 yards passing. Miles Sanders over 63.5 yards rushing. Give me Justin Jefferson over 98.5 yards receiving. And give me Garrett Wilson over 50.5 yards receiving as our perfect 5 slip. Now, I'm going to do a 3 slip as well this week. It's going to be the lock of the day, Rashad Bateman over 48.5 yards receiving, Marcus Mariota over 208 yards passing, and Miles Sanders over 63.5 yards rushing. You could even swap out Mariota for Justin Jefferson because Justin Jefferson had massive success versus the Lions. But I'm going to go with Mariota because I have trust in him and faith in him. Again, like I've said the past before to you guys, mix and match picks. You don't have to exactly copy exactly what I'm doing here. You can mix and match. These are the 5 that I just think are the best for the week. So, all right, guys, and that's going to wrap up this probably long video. I haven't looked at exactly how long it is, but it's probably going to be one of my longer videos I've produced in a while. But that's okay. I'm posting it a day early anyways. Monday is officially due date day. I know I said last video that we're getting pretty close. So Monday is officially due date day. So next week might get a little bit interesting because we may get induced just depending on kind of how it goes. So this may be the last video, possibly. We'll kind of see what happens Monday, and then Tuesday we have a doctor's appointment where we'll kind of figure something out. So this might be the last video, maybe, until like maybe Thursday or Friday. We'll just kind of see what happens. So expect me at the latest to be back Thursday. At the earliest, I'll be back Monday for a Monday Night Football video. But we'll see kind of what happens, guys. I will catch you guys Monday or Thursday. Peace.